Good morning, UN representatives. I will be asking you to financially invest in the Somalian civil war peace objective once again due to our updated approach of the catastrophe and its worsened consequences, being an increase of killings over food aid between different clans, the increase of killings between the clan members due to their ideals, the increase of killings increasing the sales and lighting restrictions on weaponry used to intimidate, steal, and sexually abuse the innocents, which distracts the Somalians from the bigger picture, such as the drought and famine problems, killing thousands. All of this caused because of, as you already know, the Esak, Daroy Dia, Hawi, Abgal Mudalad, Rasahian, Digil, Daban, Jidu, Gare, Tuni, Geledi, Mirafle, and more. Much more. In fact, 35 other more tribes to be exact, having clashing ideals as to how Somalia should be led, not through religion, because the whole of Somalia is Islamic, not because the clans are of different ethnicities or beliefs, but because of two things: the peaceful and bloodthirsty. As you know, humans are social animals and find safety and comfortability in groups, and that they are Islamic extremists and moderate believers. Those are the two different types of believers in Somalia right now. So the Islamic extremists cause violent killings against those who do not believe in Islam or in it enough, being groups like Al-Qaeda and Al-Shabaab. Al-Qaeda being well known among the more middle of Africa, and Al-Shabaab being mostly found around the Horn of Africa, into the eastern side, or mostly in Somalia, as we're talking about right now. This creates more clans who, with their own creative principles, will protect themselves and hopefully the whole of Somalia in their heads. So what's happening is that you have groups like Al-Shabaab, Al-Qaeda that are coming in with Islam. In my opinion, religions are not bad at all. You know, they bring stability, they bring peace, they bring good principles to people. But what happens is that some people take it almost too seriously. And what happens is that the Islam is a pretty questionable religion, but we shall not do that because this is a peaceful initiative and we respect all religions. What we're focusing right now is on the extremists. Islam, there's nothing wrong with religion, there's nothing wrong with Islam. It is the extremists who take it too far. They create problems within the country, saying things like, oh, you're not religious enough, so you're the problem with Islam and we need to exterminate you problems. You guys are what's wrong with Islam. That's what they do. So people, out of fear, start creating clans or start joining clans in order to protect themselves. Just in case you didn't understand what's going on. Right. Now, what keeps the ideals alive? The future. The youth of Islam. The youth of Somalia too. Now, sure, an idea cannot die, but it dies with those who believe in it. So they renew it through their kin, through their children, through their youth, through their clan's principles in their daily lives. In fact, from birth, growing up, they are taught these things in their daily lives, within the clan, within their groups, within their lifestyles. But if this doesn't put them in place, then two other factors will. One being Islam and the never-ending manipulation of man through religion. For example, if you don't clean up your room, God is watching you. If you steal that cookie, God knows and you'll be a bad person, you know. They sort of use the fear of God, you know. But in a more realistic term, one would say something like, if you do not kill that infidel, God will be disappointed in you and you'll be seen less of a man. So it's almost like they sort of manipulated into they manipulate religion to making you think that it's okay for you to kill this person in the name of our religion. That obviously being the extremists. The other factor is the unemployment rates in Somalia, forcing the youth to stay within their families and clans, and worst of all, with those violent ideals. So because of the unemployment rates and because they cannot escape their families and become independent, they're stuck with those ideologies. And maybe in the beginning, They do not feel comfortable with it, but over time they start getting used to it. They're forced into doing these things. They're stuck within the civil war and all. Other obstacles are the warlords, jihadists, those are a type of extremists, and terrorists finding refuge in Somalia. Warlords and leaders interested only in violence. Clan education system and the tension between Ethiopia and Somalia. A majority of these including Islam. Now, the section where it talks about clan education system, that's obviously them growing up being told this is right and this is wrong. Another thing is the tension between Ethiopia and Somalia. Those two have had an outbreak. They have had a war over land disputes. So what's happening is that that can also be seen as a thing that's distracting the clans from uniting, being in unison. It's also Ethiopia distracting them too. Now, UN representatives, the reason as to why we need to once again try to instill peace and tranquility is because of the problems like famine and violent ideologies will increase. They will increase. Thus, the killings over the physical and mental will grow, creating a temporary cycle until one group has enough weaponry, followers, or clout that overpowers the others and starts turning the civil war into a genocide. So imagine there's a north and there's a south, and what's happening right now is they're both equally poor. They both have an equal amount of weaponry, so there's a lot of fighting. There's it's sort of a stalemate. But then what happens is that the south gets more followers, the south gets more weaponry, the south becomes more radical, and the people like the radicality. They think, oh wow, look at all those guns, look at all of these things. These guys are the more dominant ones. I'm gonna join them. And what happens is that they start growing and growing. And sooner or later, it turns from a civil war where everybody's fighting each other, it turns into a genocide. They just start plowing everybody, and they just start shooting and killing and taking the lives of the innocents, which is wrong. Excuse me for saying plowing. I don't think plowing is the right term to use. Right. Let's bring peace to Somalia. That statement sounds expensive, doesn't it? Not really. In fact, to the contrary, it's cheap and simple, and I can explain our plan with 3 words. Change the focus. Instead of fighting each other, why don't we instill patriotism through religion and culture? As we know, Somalia is an Islamic country filled with 2 types of people, believers and extremists. Islamic believers who are not extremely passionate are seen as lower men by the extremists and are then attacked for that. So the solution to that is to create a more peaceful movement of Islam within the country to outnumber the extremists and to turn them to a more peaceful movement of Islam. Dropping their guns for flowers or dropping their guns for peace. Flowers obviously representing peace. This can be done through donating money and aid to mosques and convincing priests to preach peace to the masses and be open to tranquility. Another project to educate the masses through mosques because of a majority of citizens are Islamic. Another reason for it being focused on mosques is because the majority of people are Islam, so they always are Islamic, so they're obviously going to be going to the mosques. Also, another thing is that if we were to bring aid and we bring it to mosques, what's going to happen is that the believers and day-to-day people are going to come there, meaning that we're going to attract more people. We should find them in mosques. Okay. We can offer critical thinking, education, and peace workshops there, with the cover of religion keeping them feeling comfortable. So what's happening is that if UN representatives were to come and they were to say, here's peace, here's critical thinking, here are solutions, they would not feel they wouldn't really feel comfortable because the UN representatives are not really Islamic. Or maybe the whole group, the whole initiative, the whole United Nations, the whole UN isn't an Islamic organization, so people wouldn't really feel comfortable. Excuse me, UN representatives, I just had a temporary problem there. Right, as I said, they felt more comfortable under an Islamic organization. That's why we are more hidden. That's why we co-work with mosques. Unbeknownst to you, UN representatives, you have just ensured the peace of Somalia's present and future through the adults and youth. Generations upon generations will be guided by our and Islam set positive principles. The present and the future will be protected, and the future of Somalia will be saved, and will ensure peace, because the adults are the present and the youth are the future. If we teach them now peaceful practices, then their generations upon generations will obviously refer to those peaceful practices. Obviously, for the present, it doesn't, we cannot scientifically prove right now that within the present that it will turn into a peaceful state. But with the youth, with the future, we can. With the new breed of Somalians, we can now have higher success rated peaceful talks between clans, and this is achieved through the payment of 47 UN representatives for each tribes, at least 500,000 for mosque bribes, that's the support of the mosques, the TFG support, which is a small government in the south of Somalia that takes one representative from each clan and tries to have peaceful talks within them, and at least 2 million for educational materials for co-working mosques. This is way cheaper than the monthly plea of over 10 million in US dollars for peace movements through the UN. Last year, the UN 2019, this is 2020 right now, 2019, we had a total of 19 billion spent. And this is way under, this is way cheaper, because we do not bring in military services, we do not bring weaponry, we do not bring a physical approach within the country, because physicality and soldiers can also be seen as threatening, you know. We switch to a more mental state. We're switching to a more mental movement, which costs less amounts of money, which in the future can be used for other movements and can help improve. Please do not fret. The plan is foolproof, because in order to know if someone will carry out your actions, you need to know them in and out. You need to make them predictable or study them enough to know their every move. And with a man of God, you need to know their virtues and sins, because peace is a virtue, and it would be logical to not obviously avoid a virtue and risk eternal freedom over a clan dispute. Of course, we could create propaganda and create a fire of patriotism amongst the clans, bringing them together, but we are a peaceful initiative and not the war resistance league. That's a bit of a joke. Think of our movement like this if you are still confused. Imagine a dry grassland, and our movement is a wildfire that drives away the corrupted fauna and burns the dried up flora, leaving there to be a new generation of lush and green vegetations, a new type of ecosystem that attracts new opportunity. Thank you very much.